Hello and welcome to this special interview on India Today TV. The National Herald Case has pushed the Congress leadership on the back foot and threatens the future of the critical goods and services tax. What is the Congress's legal and political strategy? Who better to answer that than former Finance Minister and one of the country's legal eagles, P. Chidambaram. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Chidambaram. The big question is the National Herald Case, which your party says is political vendetta. Rahul Gandhi is saying that it is 100% political vendetta driven by the Prime Minister's office. Where is the evidence of that?
Well, I don't want to comment on what Mr. Gandhi said, but let me give you my view. As long as it was a private complaint, it remained in the courts. But why did the government reopen a closed inquiry by the Enforcement Directorate? I have before me statements by several BJP leaders, including ministers. I can give you dates, I can give you the occasion. But they've commented on the case. They've said there's a strong prima facie case against the Gandhis and various other comments. If the government is actually indifferent to the case or neutral on the case, why did they reopen a closed Enforcement Directorate inquiry?
So you're shifting the goalpost, because the question is, you are a lawyer. The Delhi High Court says that the case smacks of criminality. The behavior of the Congress leaders mentioned in the case smacks of criminality. The Metropolitan Magistrate in the lower court says this appears prima facie to be a sham transaction where public monies have been transferred for private benefit. Now this is being said by the court. So it's the court, whether it's been reopened or not is not the issue. The issue is what the court has said. These are very strong words used by the court.
I answered your first question. Why is there suspicion about the BJP? Since that question has been answered, let's move on to the judgment now.
No, that question has also not been entirely answered, because it remains a private complaint. Subramaniam Swamy files this complaint in 2012, 2013. He doesn't file it when the BJP is in power in 2015.
It doesn't matter when the complaint was filed. What matters is, after the BJP government came into office, the ED had a preliminary inquiry and closed it, saying there's no case. The ED was abruptly transferred, the case was reopened. That answers your question, why is there suspicion about the BJP's motives?
You're saying the ED effectively is acting under the instructions of the Prime Minister's office?
It's for you to draw the inference. I'm stating facts.
Rahul Gandhi seems to be suggesting that.
I'm stating facts. ED closed the inquiry, the ED was transferred, inquiry was reopened. You draw your inference. Now let's move on to the judgment. I'm not criticizing the judge. I'm criticizing the judgment. That's perfectly permissible. The judgment, of course, will have to be challenged appropriately, and I'm sure the lawyers will do that. But what is the case? There is a company called Associated Journals Limited. It owns property. It has a modest income. It has 761 shareholders or so. The company owns the property and the income. Now all that has been done is, a new shareholder has been introduced, who's now the 99% shareholder. But that shareholder is not a private person. That shareholder is a non-profit company under Section 25 of the Companies Act, which means we have put a lock on AJL. Nobody can benefit from the properties of AJL. Nobody can benefit from the income of AJL. Not 1 rupee can be transferred to anyone. Not 1 rupee can be distributed to anyone. What has been done is to ensure that nobody benefits from the properties or income of AJL.
Let me raise the two questions though that emerge from the transaction itself. Question number one, the Congress party agrees to pay or give an interest-free loan to AJL, which according to Subramaniam Swamy in the first place is a violation of the Representation of People's Act.
Section?
A.
Which section?
B.
Which section?
No, what?
No, you must know the section.
No, he says Income Tax Act and Representation of People's Act, A, violation. B. When the transaction is, after that, you have a situation where this loan is transferred
Correct.
to Young India Company.
Correct.
And Young India Company, for the payment of 50 lakhs only, acquires assets worth 2,000 crores. Now, is
that's
that,
a mistake.
that's the question.
I'll answer it.
Because it seemed like a sweetheart deal.
You've asked your question.
Yes,
wait for the answer.
Yes.
A loan of 90 crores is given over a period of time to run National Herald. National Herald was not a success in the last years. It lost money. The 90 crore is outstanding on the books of AJL.
Yes.
That loan stands in the name of the Congress party. It is assigned to a non-profit company, underline, a non-profit company called Young Indian.
With Rahul and Sonia Gandhi
And
as the prime shareholders, along with other Congress leaders.
Makes no difference. It's a non-profit company. It doesn't matter who the shareholders are, who the directors are. Please look at section 25. It's a non-profit company.
It cannot take any benefit from the properties and assets
not
of
one
AGL?
rupee, not 1 rupee can be received.
Then why doesn't it put its balance sheet in the public domain and respond to what you're saying?
I have to answer your first question completely before you move on to the next question. So 90 crore loan is assigned to a non-profit company. The non-profit company now is a lender to AJL. That loan is converted to an equity. So you've got 90 crore worth of equity. You become the major shareholder of AJL. But please remember, the major shareholder is a non-profit company, which means you put a lock. Not 1 rupee can be received, not 1 rupee can be distributed. In fact, I can't think of any argument to say that this is a deal, much less a sweetheart deal. What we have done. For what? Who has benefited?
The benefit has, the Young India Company shareholders have acquired for just rupees 50 lakhs assets worth 2,000 crores and more.
You're wrong. You please ask your accountant, he'll explain it to you in 2 minutes. Young Indian became a lender to AJL. A loan of 90 crore has been converted to equity. And since Young Indian is a non-profit company, underline non-profit company, it cannot receive 1 rupee from AJL. So just a moment, you must allow me to complete my sentence. It cannot receive 1 rupee from AJL, nor can it distribute 1 rupee to its shareholders. It is locked. The property and the income of AJL are completely secure now.
If you believe this is such a strong case and the High Court judgment is flawed, the right approach would have been go back to the Metropolitan Magistrate who summoned you, appear before it, give a point-by-point rebuttal, treat this purely as a legal matter rather than imputing political motives and blocking Parliament and thereby effectively suggesting that even the judiciary is working under the instructions of the political executive.
Let me answer that. Nobody has made that suggestion.
Of course it is made,
Just a moment. You must allow me to complete an answer. Your questions are longer than the answers.
Go ahead.
They will go back to the court. Mrs. Gandhi and Mr. Rahul Gandhi have made it clear they will appear before the court on December 19. They are very competent lawyers. They will answer that. The point is, why does it come to Parliament? It came to Parliament, as I said in my answer to your first question, because the BJP did not remain neutral on this. The BJP government reopened an Enforcement Directorate inquiry after sacking the Director of Enforcement or transferring him. And I have a number of statements with me, the glee on the faces of the BJP leaders, the glee in their voices, the statements they have made, that triggers suspicion.
Do you concede that this entire National Herald case has come as a huge embarrassment for the Congress leadership and the Congress party? What the High Court itself says, that this is a party which has existed for so many years, and you have a situation which smacks of criminality. Has it been an embarrassment, yes or no?
Well, I don't think it has embarrassed us. It has caused us some concern about the motives of the government and those who are supporting the government. And therefore, I think it has simply stiffened our back to fight the government.
All this is also happening at a time when the goods and services tax, which many believe is the most significant indirect tax reform in a long time, hangs fire. And that is also raising concerns that the real motive of the Congress party is to prevent GST from being passed in this session of Parliament. That's what the government is saying, that this is all a smokescreen to prevent GST from being passed. There are two agendas. One is to protect the Gandhi family. The other is to prevent GST from being passed.
You're making a bizarre link. If anyone is most concerned about the GST, it's me. I announced the GST in my budget speech of 2005-06. I worked very hard over it in my first stint as finance minister and UPA. Mr. Mukherjee introduced the bill. When I returned to the finance ministry, I worked. The GST bill was stalled by the BJP for 2.5 years for no reason whatsoever, but that's history. Today, we have raised genuine concerns. And I have with me Dr. Arvind Subramaniam's committee's report, which broadly endorses the Congress party's concerns.
That's right. Out of the three concerns, two have already been addressed.
No, I have not received anything. Party has not received anything.
Arvind Subramaniam's report seems to broadly reach out to you on two concerns. One is the cap on GST, and the second is the 1% sales tax
I don't know if you speak for the government. At the meeting called by the Prime Minister, both Mrs. Gandhi and Dr. Manmohan Singh made it clear that we need to get the revised formulations of the government on our concerns.
Yes.
That meeting took place almost 7-8 days ago.
Yes.
As we speak today, we have not received any revised formulation from the government. I spoke about this to both the Congress President and Mr. Gandhi yesterday. Once we receive the revised formulations, then we will respond.
April 1 is the date which you yourself had mentioned.
Well, no, my date was much earlier.
Your date was much earlier, yes.
BJP blocked it. Your viewers should know that.
Eventually you reached a date of April 1, 2016. Will we meet that deadline for GST, given the differences that exist and are gradually narrowing down between the two sides? Time is running out, sir. This session ends on the 23rd of December. Are you confident that by the 23rd of December, Congress and the government will have reached some kind of an agreement on GST, because most regional parties are on board, sir?
I don't know. This question must be put to the government. They have had our formulations for the last 7 days. They have not responded. They are obliged to respond. It's only when they respond we can say whether a date can be kept.
I appreciate your joining us, Mr. Chidambaram. Thank you very much.
National Herald and GST, two issues that are shadowing this session of Parliament. The former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram has given the Congress's side of the story. But where does the government stand now? Joining us now is the Finance Minister, Arun Jaitley. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Jaitley. Two issues. First, National Herald. Mr. Chidambaram says, when I asked him specifically, what is the evidence that you have that there could be political vendetta or intimidation, says that why was the case which was closed reopened? It was reopened on a private complaint filed by Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, and that the enforcement directorate, which was in charge of the case, the officer was changed. This is what is his argument. Your response?
Absolutely incorrect. Not one out of these three facts is correct. The enforcement director was a Secretary Government of India holding a dual charge. Obviously, he couldn't attend to two offices, and therefore somebody had to substitute full-time. Till date, as I speak to you, either before or later, the Enforcement Directorate has passed no order. The Enforcement Directorate has issued not even a simple letter or a show-cause notice to the Congress party or its leaders. Either the erstwhile officer or the new officer has not proceeded in the matter. And therefore, for the Congress to presume that there was a transfer and something has happened, when the ED has so far not done anything, how can the Congress party say that the ED is indulging in political propaganda or political vendetta? Now let's come to the complaint. The ED has not done anything. The Congress party, through a web of financial transactions, created a Chakravyu for itself. Got land allotted for newspaper in various parts of the country, there is no newspaper. Congress party collected funds for a political purpose, gave a loan to a newspaper company, and assigned the loan to a property company. The property company took over the properties effectively.
Mr. Chidambaram says it's a non-profit Section 25 company,
Well, I can't-
and therefore the funds are locked in.
That is a very poor defense. I can't collect monies for the BJP, get a tax exemption that it has to be spent for a political purpose, and start running an orphanage. The moment I do it, I'll be guilty of law. Don't you remember the BCCI got a tax exemption for running cricket in India? They donated some part of the money to the Football Federation to promote football, and they lost their exemption. Money which is taken for an exempted purpose can only be used for an exempted purpose and for no other purpose. Today, monies collected for a political purpose are being used by a property company. The party has lost that money. Properties which were acquired for a newspaper are vested in a property company controlled by a set of individuals who've been charged by Dr. Swamy in that case. And therefore, I am not saying they are guilty. All I am saying is there is a private complaint not filed now, not filed in 2015, filed in 2012 by Dr. Swamy. The trial court prima facie finds a case and summons the accused. The accused challenged it in the High Court. The High Court has affirmed the trial court order. The Congress leadership has two alternatives. Either go to the Supreme Court or go before the magistrate and face the trial. It's a legal issue which they have to legally fight out. The ED has not taken any punitive action. The income tax so far has not taken any punitive action. They will proceed as per law, whatever rights that they have. The government has not passed any order. The government is not a party to this dispute.
The government has not interfered at any stage on the basis of the complaint that Dr. Swamy filed. At no stage.
The government has no role in it whatsoever. It's a private complaint. Any citizen can put the process of law into motion. Dr. Swamy, as a private citizen, public-spirited citizen, has put the process of law into motion. The court has taken cognizance and summoned them. They have challenged it at the High Court. They took their chance. They've lost. They can take a further chance. They can go before the trial court. But why paralyze Parliament? Supposing we meet in Parliament, that can the government do anything in this case? Obviously, the government can do nothing in this case.
You're saying why paralyze Parliament? The opposition, Mr. Chidambaram, but particularly the Congress party says because they believe it's part of a wider campaign of political intimidation going on against them, whether it's a Veerbhadra Singh, Chief Minister of Himachal.
So on another channel, and I repeat it on your channel, let us here and now, today or tomorrow, let's have a debate on each of the cases they are mentioning. I don't want to express a final opinion on the cases you are mentioning because some of the departments I look after in some capacity may be looking at it. But I can tell you these cases are stinking. How do you pay 50 lakhs and become an owner of a 2,000 crore property? Are you not liable to pay income tax? And if there is a financial transaction by which a criminal law provision is violated, a citizen is entitled to go to court. You are entitled to your remedies under the law. How does a citizen in Himachal Pradesh open a bank account and just deposit crores of rupees in that bank account in cash and convert it into private property? How is the house in which the Chief Minister is living shown as rented to a private company and he gets rent every month? You look at those cases and there's a hell of a lot which has to be answered.
And you're ready for an open debate like there was a debate on intolerance? You're challenging the Congress for a debate on vendetta?
Let it be identically worded as the debate on Mrs. Vasundhara Raje and Mrs. Swaraj. We agreed to that debate. The language was theirs. Let us just substitute those names and let's have a debate tomorrow in Parliament.
My final point, which I raised, is that the narrative of the GST, Mr. Chidambaram says, has nothing to do with the narrative of of political vendetta. He says on GST, they have formulated their response, given you their three concerns. They are waiting for the government response. He says the government has not responded. I can't respond to what Arvind Subramaniam's committee has said. It's a positive sign, but he wants to know from you why you have not responded.
Let me first of all tell you, I only wish and pray that the GST was delinked. This GST, the three suggestions they have made, go contrary to what Mr. Chidambaram and Mr. Pranab Mukherjee presented before the parliament. Those three suggestions are contrary to what Mr. Chidambaram signed on the file. These are contrary to what their chief ministers have said in the empowered committee. These are clearly afterthoughts in order to delay the GST. I have no doubt in my mind. As far as government responding to these three suggestions is concerned, I think Mr. Chidambaram has to blame his own party. I have conveyed the government's response to his party.
Formally?
Formally, I have met leaders of their party and conveyed it to them.
In writing?
I think Mr. Chidambaram should consult his own party leaders who are the appointed.
He says he spoke yesterday to Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi on GST. They are awaiting a government response.
I am not answerable for the communication gap in their own party, but what our stand on three issues could be, I have already conveyed it to senior responsible people in the Congress party.
Therefore, are you hopeful of a breakthrough on GST? Time is running out because 23rd is the last date.
The three issues can easily be overcome. They can easily be overcome provided there is a willingness for the Congress party to honestly support the GST.
Are you saying that you are not convinced that the Congress party wants GST to be passed in this session of
Parliament? I have no
Parliament?
reason to say that because Congress party mooted the idea. They introduced the bill and my suggestions are in consonance with their own proposals. If they go back on their own proposals, I can't help it. But even within the points that they have raised, there is some meeting ground which I have already conveyed to some of the responsible leaders of the Congress party.
So you remain hopeful?
Well,
You're willing to meet them more than halfway?
Well, I have to be hopeful on the issue.
Mr. Arun Jaitley, I appreciate your talking to us. Thank you so much. Arun Jaitley then responding to those two critical issues, National Herald and GST.